God is good, and all the time, and that is His nature. Today, the 32nd Sunday in the ordinary time, the Mother Church is giving us the readings, which is calling to our attention the most neglected, those who are weak. We are finding the word widow appearing how many times? In the first reading once, in the Psalm once, and in the Gospel how many times? Twice or thrice. Now, if this word is repeated, is for a reason, and is to tell us widows. Why widows? We are finding two contrasting scenes. In the first reading, a widow offering to help and helping the prophet, offering her livelihood, the remaining food, and with the words of the prophet, got the blessing, a food which sustained them for a whole year. And again, in the second part of the gospel, we are finding a widow giving all she had, the 2 coins, and giving to the treasury of the temple. Then we are finding also the contrasting part, where the first part of the gospel, a widow is being devoured by the Pharisees and the scribes, because each time they take advantage to get from her. And in this situation, we are finding also in the Psalm, where God is the protector of the orphans and the widows. Now, when we talk of the widows in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament, they are the marginalized, the most neglected, the most oppressed. And so when the psalmist is talking about the widows and the orphans, they have no one to protect them except their God. In the tradition of the Israelites, widows were neglected because in that masculine society, men were the ones to present the women. And so if a woman has nobody to present her, then people will only think of her after they have already fulfilled their personal interests. And so in such a case, we are finding, especially in the Gospel of the Matthean literature, the word Anawim of Yahweh, the poor of Yahweh. That was the classification given to orphans and the widows. And in that society, we are finding the Pharisees and the scribes, we are one because they oppress them. And I don't know, if we come back down to our society today, are we any different? In our society today, are widows still oppressed? Do still people take advantage of the widows? Huh? Those who are saying that in our society today there's no difference, to say nah. Those who are saying no, our society is better. Our society, the widows have their right to say, where are we? In our society today, do widows are still oppressed or not? Maybe we need just to ask our learned friends here, the lawyers, how many cases are there about the widows, their properties? Somebody is filing a case to take, maybe to check how many cases where the widows, somebody is taking their land because the husband is gone. If you ask my learned friends, maybe you'll find more than enough cases. And so it's to tell us that the situation during the time of Jesus, the situation in the Old Testament and today has not changed much. Has not changed much. And so we are called upon to know and to know in our society that the weak and the oppressed are at the mercy of God. And we should not just go silent. We should step in to be on their side. When we take the image in the gospel, we are finding Jesus telling us about this poor widow who put all her livelihood, already foreshadowed in the first reading, the coins she had between herself and her poverty, giving to the temple treasury. In this image, we are finding church fathers giving us 2 interpretations. which are so interesting. In the first interpretation, they see in this widow giving all. They see the image of Christ, giving all ourselves to God, giving all to us in the church that we may have everlasting life, giving himself that we may be redeemed and have life in God and with God. And so the first image, the church fathers are seeing the image of Christ. But there's a second image, which actually I like most. The image of the widow seen as the mother church. The mother church widowed. How is the mother church widowed? If you go to the book of Revelation, we find a hymn of victory. The wedding, the marriage of the Lamb has come, and her bride has made herself ready. And we are finding in this image the mother church as the bride of Christ. Christ has gone before her, and she's left in the world. But all is not lost. At the end, the bridegroom, Christ, will come for her to take his bride. Now where I work down there at Ugunja, there is a devotional group of the widows. And strange enough, there are no widowers there in that group. They are all widows. They call themselves St. Monica. And in that group, they are widows who have deviated from the tradition to live their widowhood in a holy way in the church. And so in this group, one day I had a meeting with them. They normally come for the vigil once every month. So once sharing the gospel, I asked them if any of them have ever gone back to the grave of the husband to weep. To my surprise, almost all have gone. When they are in situation where they are being oppressed by the in-laws, by the society, they always go back to weep. It was my surprise that almost all of them have gone back to the grave to weep for their husbands. And why is this happening? Because they are still the symbol of the weak, the oppressed in the society. In the church today, the church is still widowed because Christ has gone and left her behind. And leaving her behind, she's struggling in the world where the states will only come for her aid when they have a self-interest. The states in the world will only talk of the church when now they need the church to support them in something. But any other time, she's ignored. The church is not cared for. The church is just there, can warn, hey, don't do this. But what happens? They go ahead and do what they want. And so we are still finding the church as that weak widow. Others only want to manipulate. And this weak widow, we are finding Christ going back to heaven, leaving us the head of the church. He left St. Peter to lead the church. Here, there are always those, my friends, who say Christ is the head of the church. We should not talk of Peter. Then, if Jesus himself left Peter to take care of his sheep, who are we to refuse? If Peter is a weak human being like us, but God, Jesus Christ, made him to be in charge of this church, then is the visible symbol of the church in the world. And so the church widowed and weak has always a symbol of the head, which is the Pope. After the succession from Peter, we got Pope Linus, Pope Cletus, Pope Clement. You can count until you reach where? Francis today. All the succession. And so is the visible head of the church in the world, giving us a picture of the unity of the church. And so the church is still widowed, suffering in the tides of the waves of our time. Try to look around now, the crisis of marriage, which the church is trying to address. Try to look around now, some of the old problems of the marriages of the gay. Try to look around the troubles the church is having still with the euthanasia, or what they call the mercy killing. And so the widowed church, weak as it is struggling to tell the world what God wants from us. And now the symbol of the unity of the church is Pope Francis. We are lucky that is coming here. In how many days' time? He's coming when? Just few days. Pope Francis will be with us. is the symbol of the head of the church. And we'll be lucky to have him around. And that's why we are invited. Those of you now who are near, because now me, I'm very far. I'll only come. We have sent our names to get the pass, the gate pass. If they don't give me the gate pass, I'll not come. But if they give me, I'll come. But you who are near, why not attend? Why not go and pray with our Pope? It's the symbol of the head of the church, the widow of Christ. Why not go and pray with him? Why not go to meet him? Because Christ going to heaven left somebody to be in charge of the church. And there we find the succession of the Pope. And here we need to pray with him more than ever, because the forces of darkness are ever at work against the church. Now, when we talk of the problem in marriage, maybe you have seen many people suggesting that instead of the vow, until death do us apart, some are suggesting that maybe to make it for 2 years. Then if you make it, you come back again and another 2 years. Then again if you make it, so some people want us to wrap that phrase, until death do us apart. They want us to say maybe for 2 years. And then after 2 years you come again. So you see such a wave. And now people will insist that no, somebody sick and suffering, we should not allow to suffer. We just give injection and the person die. The mercy killing. Up to now, the church withhold and says life is sacred and God is the one giving the life and it's the one taking it away. So somebody will not think of that, so and so is in pain, we just give him injection to die. No, the euthanasia or the mercy killing. Up to now, the church say no to this. You know the problem of the gay marriage. Always when it comes to gay marriage, I remember the phrase of one of the cardinals in US who once said that God created Adam and Eve and not Adam and Brian. So that one is also still there. Some people saying that we are free, freedom of choice. We choose that, but the church, as she is still telling us no. This is something which should not be done. And so, if the head of the church will be around, please go and pray with Pope Francis. Here, he will be here in Nairobi, just at next door. Now, when we see the mother church as the widow giving all, we are the members of the church. We are parts of the body of the church. The example of the mother church giving all to God should be an example to us. Do we give God not from our abundance, but from our self-sacrifice? Do you sacrifice your time to do good for the glory of God? Try to look at your timetable. Yes, it is full, you are busy working, but those free times you have. Many a time when I was here, I used to talk to people, maybe in chit-chat, say, why can't you join to be in choir? Why can't you join to be a proclaimer? Maybe you are such a deep faith. Why can't you help us? Maybe the catechesis with some people who are big, who cannot come with the children. And you always see that, I'm busy, I'm what, there's no time. But then, if we can start having that donation of our time to God, then to imitate the mother church, giving all to Christ, the mother church giving all to God. And so today, as we are given the image of the widow giving all, we are called upon to give all for the glory of God. Praise be Jesus Christ.